force that echoed through the quiet house, startling everyone inside. Logan Mathers, his suit disheveled from the hurried drive, stormed into the living room, his sharp eyes immediately locking onto the scene before him. His daughter, Maya, knelt on the hardwood floor, scrubbing frantically as tears streaked her face. Her shoulders shook, her hands raw and trembling from the harsh chemicals. A man lounged on the couch nearby, smirking at his phone, utterly indifferent to the emotional wreckage playing out just feet away. Maya! Logan's voice cut through the air like a thunderclap. Maya flinched but didn't stop scrubbing. The man on the couch finally looked up, his smirk faltering for just a second before he leaned back lazily, trying to mask his unease. "What's this?" Logan demanded, his voice low and sharp, each word like a razor's edge. He was already piecing the situation together, but he wanted to hear it from someone. Anyone. "She spilled wine," the man, Zach, said with an infuriating nonchalance, gesturing lazily at Maya. "It's her mess. She's cleaning it." Logan's jaw tightened, his fists clenching as he turned his gaze back to his daughter. "Get up," he ordered, his tone leaving no room for argument. Maya hesitated, her trembling hands gripping the cloth tightly. Her eyes darted to Zach, searching for some unspoken permission, but his expression turned cold. Logan saw it, the silent threat, the control Zach held over her. His stomach twisted in rage. "I said, get up," Logan repeated, his voice firm but now tinged with an unmistakable edge of fury. Maya slowly rose, her knees buckling slightly. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable, but it wasn't directed at Logan. It was at Zach. Logan's heart ached at the sight of his once vibrant daughter reduced to this fragile shell. "What's going on here, Maya?" Logan asked, softening his tone as he turned to her. "Talk to me." Before she could respond, Zach stood, adjusting his sleeves as though preparing for a casual conversation. "This is our home, Logan," he said coolly. "And in our home, we handle things our way. You don't just walk in here and—" "Stop talking," Logan interrupted, his voice cutting through Zach's calm veneer like a knife. "You think I'm blind? You think I don't see what's happening here?" Zach smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "And what do you think you see? Huh? A husband teaching his wife how to take responsibility. Maybe you've been too soft on her, Logan. That's why she doesn't know." Logan stepped closer, towering over Zach. The smirk finally disappeared as Zach took an instinctive step back. "You don't get to talk about my daughter like that," Logan said, his voice low and dangerous. "Not now. Not ever." Maya stood frozen, her hands trembling at her sides. "Dad, please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's fine. I can handle it." Logan turned to her, his expression softening. "No, sweetheart, you can't. And you shouldn't have to." Logan's presence seemed to fill the room, his towering frame and commanding voice leaving no space for Zach's defiance to thrive. Yet, as he watched his daughter tremble, Logan knew that physical size wasn't the answer. Zach's control over Maya was rooted in something much deeper, something he needed to shatter. "Maya," Logan said gently, keeping his gaze locked on her, "you don't have to explain yourself to anyone, least of all to him." "Excuse me?" Zach snapped, his bravado creeping back. "You can't just—" Logan cut him off with a sharp look, a glare so intense it seemed to drain the color from Zach's face. "Don't speak." Maya's lips parted as if she wanted to protest, but nothing came out. Her eyes flickered between the two men, torn between the fear of her husband's wrath and the safety her father's presence promised. Logan reached out a hand, his tone softening further. "Come here, Maya." Her hesitation was heart-wrenching. For a moment, it looked like she might step forward, but then Zach's voice slashed through the air. "Don't move," he commanded, his tone laced with venom. "You're not going anywhere." Logan's fists clenched, his patience hanging by a thread, but he kept his voice calm as he turned back to Zach. "This ends now," he said. "Whatever power you think you have over her, it's gone. I won't let you keep her here." Zach sneered, leaning back as if unimpressed. "And what are you going to do, Logan? Call the police? You think they care about a marital spat?" This is between me and my wife, and you have no say in it. Logan's lips curled into a humorless smile. You think you're untouchable because of some legal technicality? Let me remind you who you're dealing with. I didn't claw my way up from nothing just to watch someone like you tear down everything I've built, including my family. For the first time, Zach faltered. His smirk wavered, and a flicker of doubt crossed his eyes. But he quickly masked it with defiance. You don't scare me. Logan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. I don't need to scare you. I just need to make sure you understand one thing. You've already lost. The silence that followed was electric, the kind that made the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. Maya's breath hitched as her father's words hung heavy in the room. Logan's presence felt unshakable, a force Zach could no longer ignore. But Zach wasn't the type to surrender easily. He straightened, his confidence flickering like a candle fighting against the wind. Lost? Zach scoffed, though his voice lacked its usual venom. You think barging in here and throwing your weight around changes anything? Maya stays here because she wants to. Logan turned slowly toward his daughter, his gaze piercing but filled with an unspoken plea. Is that true, Maya? He asked softly. Do you want to stay here? Maya opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her hands fidgeted at her sides, the weight of the moment crushing her. She glanced at Zach, whose eyes burned with a silent warning, then back at her father, who radiated nothing but love and determination. Her throat tightened as tears welled up in her eyes. She stammered, her voice breaking. You don't have to answer him, Zach interrupted, his tone sharp as he stepped closer to her. This isn't a family meeting, Logan. You're not part of this marriage. Logan's jaw tightened, but he didn't let Zach's words rattle him. She doesn't owe you silence, he shot back. Then, looking at Maya again, he softened. You owe him nothing, Maya. Not your words. Not your loyalty. Nothing. Her knees buckled, and she sank onto the armrest of the couch, her head dropping into her hands. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know what I want anymore. Logan's heart broke at her words. This wasn't the daughter he remembered. The fierce, confident girl who used to challenge him at every turn. Zach had drained her spirit, reducing her to this shadow of herself. But Logan wouldn't let it stay that way. I know it's hard, Logan said gently, kneeling in front of her. But you're stronger than you think. And you don't have to face this alone. Zach barked out a bitter laugh. What are you trying to do here, Logan? Play the hero? This isn't some fairy tale where you swoop in and fix everything. Logan stood, towering over Zach again, his eyes cold. You're right, he said. It's not a fairy tale. It's real life. And in real life, men like you don't win. Before Zach could respond, Logan turned to Maya and held out his hand. Come with me, Maya. Right now. Zach's face twisted with rage, and he grabbed her wrist before she could move. She's not going anywhere, he growled. That was the breaking point. Logan moved faster than Zach could react, grabbing his arm and wrenching it away from Maya. Zach yelped in pain, stumbling back as Logan stepped between them. Touch her again, and you'll regret it, Logan said, his voice deadly calm. Maya gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She'd never seen her father like this, calculated and composed, yet brimming with barely contained fury. For a moment, everything felt suspended, the tension so thick it was hard to breathe. Go get your things, Logan told her without looking away from Zach. We're leaving. Maya hesitated, her eyes darting toward the stairs and then back to Zach, who clutched his arm and glared daggers at her. His expression was a warning, an unspoken threat she had grown far too familiar with. But something about her father's unwavering presence gave her the courage to take a step toward freedom. I'll get my things, she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. She didn't wait for Zach's response and quickly turned toward the stairs. Maya! Zach barked, lunging forward, but Logan stepped in his path, his imposing frame halting him instantly. Don't even think about it, Logan said, his voice like steel. Zach froze, his jaw tightening as he realized he was outmatched. Not just physically but in sheer determination. Maya's footsteps faded upstairs, and for a moment, The only sound in the room was the tense rhythm of heavy breathing. Zach's eyes darted toward the door, then back to Logan, as if calculating his next move. But Logan wasn't about to give him the chance. "You've got one chance, Zach," Logan said, his voice calm but laced with menace. "Let her go, and this ends here." Zach let out a humorless laugh, though there was no confidence behind it. "You think you're some kind of savior, huh? You think you can just walk in here and take her? She'll come crawling back. They always do." Logan's fists tightened at his sides, but he didn't take the bait. "You don't know her like I do," he said simply. "And you don't deserve her." Zach's mouth opened to retort, but the sound of Maya descending the stairs silenced him. She carried a small suitcase in one hand and clutched a photo album to her chest with the other. Her steps were shaky, but she didn't stop until she was standing next to her father. "I'm ready," she said quietly, not daring to look at Zach. "You're making a mistake," Zach said, his voice low and venomous. "You think he's going to protect you forever? You'll come back. You'll see." Maya flinched, but Logan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Ignore him," Logan said. "You don't owe him anything." Zach moved to block the door, his desperation boiling over. "You walk out that door, Maya, and you're dead to me. You hear me? Dead." For a moment, Maya froze, the weight of his words pressing down on her. But then Logan stepped forward, his voice steady and unshakable. "She doesn't belong to you, Zach. Not anymore." Logan opened the door, guiding Maya through it. Zach didn't follow. He stood frozen, his face twisted with fury, as the door slammed shut behind them. The air outside felt lighter, but Maya couldn't shake the heaviness in her chest. She clutched her photo album tighter, her breaths coming in short gasps. Logan led her to his car, opening the passenger door for her before getting behind the wheel. As they pulled out of the driveway, Maya glanced back at the house, her prison for so many years. She expected to feel fear, regret, or even longing. Instead, she felt nothing, just a hollow emptiness that left her staring silently out the window. Logan glanced at her as they drove. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer at first, her fingers tightening around the album. "I don't know," she finally said, her voice barely audible. "That's okay," Logan replied, his tone soft. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. The important thing is that you're out." Maya nodded, but tears spilled silently down her cheeks. Logan didn't press her. He knew this was only the beginning of her journey. What mattered now was making sure she never felt alone again. The drive back to Logan's house was a quiet one, but the tension lingered like a heavy fog. Maya stared out the window, her reflection distorted in the glass as they passed under the amber glow of streetlights. She couldn't bring herself to look at her father. Shame clawed at her insides, mingling with a strange sense of relief. For years, she'd told herself that leaving Zach wasn't an option, that she could endure, that things would get better. Now she wasn't sure what came next. Logan's knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel. He glanced at her every so often, trying to gauge her state of mind, but he didn't press. He knew better than to bombard her with questions. What she needed now wasn't answers, it was time. As they pulled into the long driveway leading to Logan's sprawling home, Maya let out a shaky breath. The sight of the house, lit warmly against the night, stirred memories of safety and simpler times. But it also reminded her of how far she'd drifted from the person she used to be. Logan parked and turned off the engine. He didn't move immediately, his hand lingering on the key. "You don't have to talk about anything tonight," he said finally. "Just know that you're safe here. No one's going to hurt you." Maya nodded but said nothing. She stepped out of the car, clutching her suitcase and the photo album like lifelines, and followed her father inside. The warmth of the house enveloped her as they entered, but it felt foreign, almost surreal. Maya stood in the foyer, her feet rooted to the polished floor as her eyes darted around. The familiarity of it all, her childhood photos lining the walls, the faint smell of cedar from the fireplace, brought a lump to her throat. "I made up your old room," Logan said, breaking the silence. "It's exactly how you left it. Thought you might like that." Maya nodded again, Her voice caught somewhere between her heart and her throat. She followed him upstairs, her steps slow and deliberate, as if she was afraid the moment might vanish. When Logan pushed open the door to her room, she froze. It was as though time had stood still. The lavender walls, the bookshelves crammed with novels she'd once adored, even the quilt her grandmother had made, all untouched, waiting for her. "I'll let you settle in," Logan said, stepping back. "If you need anything, just call for me." As he walked away, Maya stepped inside, setting her suitcase down by the bed. She placed the photo album carefully on the nightstand, her hands trembling. Her gaze swept over the room, her chest tightening with every memory that flooded back. Collapsing onto the bed, she buried her face in her hands. The tears came fast and hard, years of suppressed pain pouring out in waves. She cried for the life she had lost, for the version of herself she didn't recognize anymore, and for the fear that had kept her trapped for so long. Downstairs, Logan sat in his study, a glass of water untouched on the desk in front of him. He couldn't get the image of Maya out of his mind, the haunted look in her eyes, the way her hands trembled like she was trying to hold herself together by sheer will. It made his blood boil to think of what Zach had done to her. A buzzing sound broke his thoughts. Logan pulled his phone from his pocket and frowned at the screen. An unknown number. Normally he wouldn't answer, but something in his gut told him this wasn't random. "Hello," he said, his tone cautious. There was a pause, then a low chuckle that made Logan's grip on the phone tighten. "Logan," came Zach's voice, dripping with venom. "You think you've won, don't you?" Logan's jaw clenched. "You have nothing to say to me." "Oh, I have plenty to say," Zach hissed. "You think you can just take her? That I'll roll over and let you destroy my marriage? You don't know who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," Logan shot back, his voice icy. "And if you come near her again, I'll make sure you regret it." Zach laughed, the sound cold and sharp. "You can't protect her forever, Logan. She's mine. She'll always be mine." Logan's heart pounded, but he kept his voice steady. "She doesn't belong to you, Zach. She's free. And there's nothing you can do about it." "We'll see about that," Zach said darkly before the line went dead. Logan stared at the phone, his blood boiling. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. Zach wasn't the type to let go easily, and Logan knew he needed to stay one step ahead. Upstairs, Maya sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She didn't recognize the woman staring back. Eyes red and puffy, her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. But deep inside, she felt the tiniest flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. For the first time, she was free. But with freedom came uncertainty, and the looming shadow of Zach wasn't far behind. The night stretched on, heavy with an unsettling stillness. Maya tossed and turned in her childhood bed, her mind racing. Every time she closed her eyes, Zach's face loomed in her thoughts. His voice, his threats, the way his smirk could cut her down with a single glance. She clutched the quilt tightly, as if the fabric could shield her from the memories that refused to fade. Downstairs, Logan remained in his study, staring out the window into the dark expanse of his backyard. Zach's phone call echoed in his mind. The venom, the arrogance, it all confirmed what Logan already knew. Zach wasn't going to let this go, and that made him dangerous. Logan leaned back in his chair, pulling out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts until he found the number he was looking for. It was late, but this couldn't wait. After a few rings, a gruff voice answered. "Logan? It's been a while." "Rick," Logan said, his tone firm. "I need a favor." Rick, a retired private investigator and an old friend, immediately picked up on the tension in Logan's voice. "What's going on?" Logan exhaled sharply. "It's my daughter. She's finally left her husband, but he's not letting go. I need eyes on him. Anything he does, I want to know about it. And I need to know if he's hiding anything. Something I can use if he tries to come after her." Rick was silent for a moment. "You think he's going to escalate?" "I don't just think it. I know it," Logan said. "And I'm not taking any chances." Rick let out a low whistle. "All right, send me his details and I'll get started first thing in the morning." "Don't worry, Logan." We'll keep her safe. The next morning, Maya awoke to the smell of coffee wafting through the house. She rubbed her eyes, the events of the previous night crashing down on her like a wave. For a brief moment, she'd forgotten where she was. The warmth and familiarity of her old room had tricked her into believing it was years ago, before everything with Zach. As she shuffled downstairs, she found Logan in the kitchen, already dressed in his usual crisp attire. He turned when he heard her footsteps, offering a small smile. "Morning, sweetheart. I made coffee, and there's some toast if you're hungry." Maya hesitated in the doorway, the simple act of being cared for feeling foreign after so many years of walking on eggshells. "Thanks," she murmured, taking a seat at the counter. She wrapped her hands around the warm mug, letting the heat seep into her palms. Logan studied her, noting the dark circles under her eyes and the way she held herself, as though she might shatter at any moment. He wanted to tell her about Zach's call, about Rick, about the steps he was already taking to ensure her safety. But he held back. She didn't need more weight on her shoulders right now. "How did you sleep?" he asked, keeping his tone light. She shrugged. "It was okay. Better than I expected, I guess." "That's good," Logan said. "One step at a time." Maya looked up at him, her eyes clouded with doubt. "Do you really think it's over? That Zach will just let me go?" Logan's jaw tightened, but he forced a reassuring smile. "He doesn't have a choice. You're not alone in this, Maya. Whatever he tries, we'll handle it. Together." Her eyes flickered with a hint of gratitude, but the fear lingered. "You don't know him like I do," she whispered. "He doesn't give up. He'll find a way." Logan reached across the counter, placing his hand over hers. "Then we'll make sure he doesn't get the chance." Across town, Zach sat in his dimly lit living room, a glass of whiskey in his hand. The house was eerily quiet without Maya's presence. But he didn't care. His anger simmered, bubbling just beneath the surface. She thought she could just walk out, with her father's help, no less. The thought was infuriating. His phone buzzed on the table, and he picked it up without checking the caller ID. "What?" Zach came a sharp, clipped voice. It was his friend Travis, someone who had always shared Zach's distaste for authority. "I heard about your little situation. You gonna let her get away with that?" Zach's grip on the glass tightened. "She's not getting away with anything," he snarled. "Logan thinks he can just waltz in and take her from me. He has no idea what he's dealing with." Travis chuckled darkly. "So, what's the plan?" Zach leaned back, his lips curling into a sinister smirk. "Oh, I've got a few ideas. But first, I need to remind Maya who she belongs to. And her dear daddy? He's about to find out he bit off more than he can chew." Maya's gaze dropped to her coffee, her mind heavy with conflicting thoughts. The uncertainty of what lay ahead loomed large, but something about her father's unshakable confidence gave her a sliver of hope she hadn't felt in years. For the first time in what seemed like forever, she allowed herself to believe that there might be a way out of the nightmare she had lived for so long. Logan watched her, his heart aching for the daughter he barely recognized. The girl who had once been so full of life and laughter, now reduced to this fragile shell. But as much as he wanted to shield her from every pain, he knew that Maya had to find her own path. And it wouldn't be easy. Zach's words still echoed in her mind, the weight of his threats hanging over her like a storm cloud. "I'm scared, Dad," Maya finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to do this. I've been with him for so long. It feels like I'm walking into the unknown." Logan set his mug down and crossed the room to her, his expression softening. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of reassurance. "I know it's terrifying. I can't pretend to know what you're going through. But I do know this, you're stronger than you think. And you don't have to do it alone. We'll take it one step at a time." Maya nodded, biting her lip to hold back the flood of emotions threatening to overtake her. She didn't know if she could ever fully recover from the years of abuse, the manipulation, the fear. But for the first time, there was a glimmer of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time: possibility. The sound of the doorbell ringing broke the quiet between them, and Logan's gaze flicked toward the door. "I'll get it," he said, squeezing her shoulder before heading out of the kitchen. Maya stared into her mug, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The past was never going to leave her completely, but maybe, just maybe, she could build something new. Something for herself. Logan returned a few moments later, his expression more serious than before. Maya, he said gently, there's someone here to see you. Maya looked up, confused. Who? Logan stepped aside to reveal Rick, his old friend and the retired investigator, standing at the doorway. His tall frame filled the entrance, his presence immediately giving off an air of quiet authority. Hey Maya, Rick said with a warm but firm smile. I'm Rick. I was just talking to your dad. She stood up slowly, unsure of what to say. Hi, she managed, her voice still trembling. I've been hired to keep an eye on Zach, Rick said without preamble, his voice low and purposeful. We're going to make sure he doesn't come near you, and if he does, we'll be ready. Maya's chest tightened. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this. I don't know if I want to make things worse. Rick nodded understandingly. I get it, but you don't have to face him alone anymore, and you don't have to decide everything right now. We'll take it slow, okay? Logan stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on Maya's arm. We're doing this, sweetheart. And whatever you decide, you're not going through this alone. Maya swallowed, trying to steady her nerves. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She didn't want to go back. Not to Zach, not to that life. And with her father by her side and people like Rick who were willing to help, maybe she could find a way forward. Okay, she whispered, the word feeling like a weight lifted off her shoulders. Let's do this. Rick nodded. We'll start right away. Just take care of yourself in the meantime. We've got this. As Rick left to start his work, Logan turned to Maya with a proud, gentle smile. You're doing great, sweetheart. One step at a time. For the first time in years, Maya felt the stirrings of hope. It wasn't over, not by a long shot.